The Phillies are going to the World Series, baby. Ugh. Hey everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. So I'm sure that you've heard myself and other creators say some version of just because it's burning doesn't mean it's working. And you've probably rebutted that with, then why is it burning? So today we're gonna talk about exactly that. We're gonna very simply discuss the differences between muscle burn and muscle growth because they are not necessarily always the same thing. But first, we do have to thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of online classes and members across 150 countries who come together to find inspiration and take the next step in their creative journey. It's a place to get inspired, learn new skills, and then put them to work in actionable ways. If you've been around for a while, you know that I've partnered with Skillshare a number of times, and I primarily use it to help with my social media marketing, video editing, and even understanding how my cameras work a little bit better. Currently, I'm taking Context is Key, Social Media Strategy in a Noisy Online World with Gary Vaynerchuk, who, fun fact, Jordan Syatt actually used to train full time. Now, if you watched this video right here about my business, you'll know that one of my main client acquisition methods is through social media. So this course has really been helpful in keeping me focused on my why. Now, although I use Skillshare more for like digital marketing purposes, they have thousands of courses and other topics ranging from music to writing to even knitting. So no matter what your interests are, there is more than likely something for you on the platform. Now, as a thank you, the first 1,000 people to use my link below will receive a free month trial of Skillshare. And if you end up snagging one of those memberships, I would love to hear what courses you end up taking. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. We are a community that loves learning. So let's learn why your muscles burn. Okay, we also need to ignore this mess over here. Just ignore it. So before we talk about muscle burn, I want you actually first to understand muscle growth and how that bodily adaptation actually occurs. So the only way that science has shown us thus far that we can grow more muscle tissue is through added resistance over time. And just remember that adequate resistance is gonna mean something different to everybody because everyone is at a different strength level. Someone who's an advanced athlete is going to need more resistance than someone who has never picked up weight before. So essentially, when we put a muscle under enough resistance, it's going to lead to little micro tears within the muscle. Now, this causes the body to actually fill in those tears, rebuild, and build more muscle tissue. Now, keep in mind that there are also a lot of other factors that go into muscle growth. Your age, your body size, your protein intake, your gender, your hormone levels, like there's a lot that goes into it, but this is the very basic understanding of how the body actually does grow muscle. And I wanna quickly touch on too, like why that's important. Why is it important to have adequate muscle mass on our body? I feel like whenever I say the term muscle mass, people think of like this, like a bodybuilder. This is not what I mean at all. So often in marketing, especially within the world of like fitness, we are sold the extremes, right? We are either gonna look like a supermodel stick thin or we're gonna look like a bodybuilder. So I get it. I understand why our brain, when we say strength training or when we say muscle mass, like that's where it goes. We have to start to unlearn that. So aside from the obvious benefit of just like muscle makes you strong enough to perform daily tasks without getting injured, muscle mass is also very closely tied to our bone density. And the reason for that is because one of the ways that we can increase our bone density is through resistance training. So like when you're lifting weights, you're not only increasing your muscle mass, you are also increasing your bone density. Bone density is so important, I think for the obvious reasons, but like, let's break it down. Imagine you're like 60 years old. Not old, right? Healthy, you walk every day, play a little tennis for fun. I don't know, I'm just like making up a person. Now let's say one day you're on a walk and you don't notice the curb in front of you, slip, fall, and you break your hip. Your quality of life at 60 just went from a normal active human being bedridden, hip replacement. You've just aged yourself up so much. And why did you break your hip? Because you had very low bone density, because you didn't do any strength training. And I feel like people don't sell it this way. People don't talk about it this way because it's not sexy, but like this is the reality of it. Aside from that, muscle mass is going to help increase your resting metabolic rate, AKA your metabolism. Now, I don't want you to think that it's an insane amount of extra calories that you're gonna be burning during the day with more muscle mass. But, it's a little added bonus. And then, we already talked about this. Muscle mass is going to make you strong enough to help prevent injury in daily life. If we go back to that first example of the person stepping off a curb and like not seeing it, maybe if they had been doing strength training or even balance training, like maybe they would have been able to catch themselves, or even maybe when they fell, like they would have had enough muscle mass to help just like kind of take the blow of that fall. You know what I mean? And look, I'm not saying that if you strength train, you're never gonna get injured again. Like, that's not what I'm saying, right? But what I am saying is that the risk of not strength training is not worth it. Like, the reward is so much stronger with strength training than if you don't. And then there's like lots of other added benefits or like added correlations. People who have more muscle mass on the body tend to have a lower blood pressure, better like glycemic or like blood sugar level control. There are a lot of studies that show that people who do resistance training have better mental health. So again, all of those claims are kind of like twice removed, like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon type of thing. But there's definitely correlation there. Okay, we're finally here. Why you clicked on the video? What the heck does it mean if your muscle is burning? Now, a lot of you are probably screaming, lactic acid. Well, you're actually wrong. For a long time, that's actually what we thought like burning in a muscle was during exercise, and then also after exercise, like when you're sore after a workout. But the thing that's actually burning your muscle during a workout is hydrogen. So I'm gonna break this down so simply because you literally just don't need to know any more than the simplicity of it. You will be bored. Okay, so when you begin exercising, your body will use an energy source called ATP. This is a molecule that gets broken down, but then once it's broken down, you're left with a large concentration of hydrogen in the muscle. And that's it. That's all you need to know. So I want to give you 2 examples here of the same exercise with resistance and without resistance, and show you that while both burn, only one is actually growing your muscles. So let's take a bicep curl. You're doing a bicep curl, 10, 15 pound weights, maxing out your reps, and your muscle is burning. Your muscle, as long as that is enough resistance for you, is also creating little micro tears. And after some rest, some hydration, a little protein, biceps are gonna build. On the flip side, if you are doing the Blogilates weightless bicep curls, for most people, air just simply isn't enough resistance. So if you do that long enough, 1, 2, 3 minutes, you're gonna feel a burning in the biceps, but it's not because the muscle is breaking down. It's because you're using ATP to continue to flap your arms mindlessly. It's not building muscle. It's not burning fat. You're using up your stored ATP and it's leaving a shit ton of hydrogen in your biceps. That's like literally it. So, if you are really looking to increase your muscular endurance, like if there's some sort of movement you have to do over and over and over for a really long period of time and you want to train that, great. That's a great method. But I don't know what this is that you're going to have to do over and over and over. Like, I don't know why that's functional. And the biggest issue that I have with those types of workouts is that they are typically accompanied with crazy claims. Long, lean lines, lean muscle mass, toned muscles. It's literally all bullshit. But then these unqualified scam artists are just like, but you feel the burn, it means it's working. Doesn't mean shit. Like, cool, I can feel the hydrogen burning up in my biceps. What good does that do me? Okay, so the last thing that I do want to touch on here is this kind of idea of like action versus function. And this is kind of a tricky, nuanced concept to understand. And I think that this is really what sets people apart from like the bodybuilding world versus training a little bit more for function, or like what I call functional training. So if we just think about the bicep again, as an example, the main function of the bicep is to flex at the elbow joint. But when we think about the bicep functionally, it's also going to help to stabilize the arm. And I feel like in daily life, a lot of what people are missing is overall stability. And this is why I don't train people like muscle by muscle. Like, I'm gonna train more movement patterns. I'm gonna train people more so full body, because that's how we're gonna use these muscles daily. And that's why you don't see an overarching theme of like training individual muscles within my programs. So like, for example, we're not gonna do a ton of isolated bicep curls because I just don't see how that is going to be the thing that transfers best into most people's lives. If your goal is to really get big old biceps, yeah. But if your goal is anything else, no. I will always remember this. When I was getting my CFSC certification, or Certified Functional Strength Coach, why am I using my hand so much? That's the Mike Boyle Functional Strength Coach certification. I remember that Mike, in one of like the big lectures, was kind of ranting about how we teach dead person anatomy, meaning within the world of strength, get very focused in on like, this is the action of the muscle, so you only train it that way. And if you claim that the muscle is working when you're not performing that action, you're wrong. And you see that a lot in the bodybuilding community. And you see a lot of like, well, is this the most efficient way to work this muscle for muscle growth? And I think specifically in that lecture, he was talking about the abs and how, like, you know, crunching positions, those work for sure the action of the abdominals. But your abs are also going to be a huge stabilizer on the front of your body. And that's why we can also train the abs in rotation, in anti-rotation, in anti-flexion, in anti-extension. People who get so tunnel visioned on, but the function of the abdominals is to bring the ribs and the pelvis closer together and create that posterior tilt. Like, yes, but is that the only way that we're using our abdominals in daily life? No. We're also using them with the entire core. Like, your core is not just your abs, it's your internal and external obliques, it's your TVA, it's your diaphragm, it's your pelvic floor. Like, we're using all of these things together. But the people who get so tunnel visioned on that are the people also who are like, I don't care about function, I just want a six pack. And that's not my realm of fitness. So a lot of times with muscles, especially if part of their function is to stabilize, just because we're not performing the action of them doesn't mean that they're not working. Now, does it mean that we're going to get crazy muscle growth from doing these stabilizing exercises? No. But is that always the goal of an exercise? Also no. All right, guys, that is everything that I have for you today. We talked about muscle growth, we talked about muscles burning, we talked about action versus function and my kind of philosophy with all of that. If you have any questions about those three things, leave them down below. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos, and I will see you all in the next one.